Throughout the series of Bleach, the topic of strength and who is the strongest has always been pretty prevalent. Many people have criticized Bleach for having Genki power scaling. We have all heard those people say Ichigo shouldn't have beat the captains in Soul Society. Bleach power scaling has been criticized for years upon years, and I don't think that's going to get any better. Despite this is my attempt at trying to mend some of those problems. Bleach isn't a perfect series, but I will say the power scaling is consistently fun, and many YouTubers have made their careers in really good videos just discussing and debunking and talking about this topic. In this video, we'll get into the strongest characters in each arc of Bleach. I know the arc list for Bleach can be pretty complicated depending on who you're talking to, so I'll just list out the arcs right now. Agent of Shinigami, Soul Society, A Wrong Car Invasion, Waco Mundo, Fate Katakura, Fullbringer, and Thousand Year Blood War. I'll try to explain their abilities, their fights, what happens, and why I think they're number 1 compared to the number 2 spot. As a caveat before we begin, the character has to actually be relevant to the arc. They can't just show up and have a cameo and then just be number 1. They have to be involved with the plot line or a certain storyline. This way we're not going to say Aizen. As well, we're going to take into context the full abilities they have even if it's not entirely shown. For example, if Unohana had a plot line with Toshiro around Aizen, and if I picked her, then it would be fair since she's one of the strongest captains in history. So for Agent of Shinigami, it has to be Kisuke Urahara for me. He's a genius the world of Bleach has never seen before, has a really convenient Shikai, and his Bankai is almost the ultimate counter to any wall he could be faced with. It's not a hard wall to climb concerning the characters in this arc. I would suppose the main contentions would be Byakuya and maybe Isshin if you squint your eyes, but no, Kisuke should just do them bad. We should all be aware that after almost every fight you end up getting stronger in Bleach, and Kisuke should have only about 2 to 3 Zenkai boosts from this point in the arc, meaning most of his feats in Thousand Year Blood War could be applicable in my opinion. One of his best feats is him reconstructing his body to move faster to blitz Asuken. This one feat makes me think he would do very well in a matchup against Byakuya. Byakuya got perception blitzed by a fatigued, tired Bankai Ichigo while in Bankai himself. The connective tissue here is pretty solid considering what we see in A Wrong Car Invasion. First, Kisuke just canceled Yami's own Sero with the regular attack from his Shikai. Bankai Ichigo was performing similarly well against Yami, drawing a connection between them, which would obviously put Kisuke above the Byakuya that Ichigo beat. However, if you think that was a bit of a leap in logic, Ukiura says there's only 3 people with high enough SP to fight them, and Ichigo is not included in this. You could think this could be for a variety of reasons, like the substitute Shinigami badge, nerfing Ichigo's SP, or the fact that Ichigo is mentally nerfed throughout this entire arc. No matter what, to me, it seems like the simplest interpretation is just Ukiura believing Kisuke is above A Wrong Car Invasion Ichigo, who should be around the same Ichigo who defeated Byakuya, meaning Kisuke would also defeat Byakuya. This wasn't even including his Bankai and Kido spells and everything else that we see later on, but nonetheless, it proves what I'm saying here. In Soul Society, it's just Yamamoto. Yamamoto is involved with the core storyline of freeing Rukia, even if it's minuscule and sort of irrelevant toward the conclusion of the arc. There's really no need to get too deep into it. Aizen is scared of Yamamoto, evidenced by Wonderwise. The strongest captains concede to Yamamoto just in Shikai. Yamamoto is able to put people under genjutsus with his Ryatsu. Everything just points to Yamamoto, and a runner-up would be Aizen, but Aizen will not and could not do anything against Ryujin Jaka. His sword is just gonna break like Yuha's did, and then he's gonna get one shot down the middle like Kiriko. A Wrong Car Invasion is pretty interesting to consider, not gonna lie. It would just be Yami here though. Yami himself states that he's the strongest Espada and that nobody else compares. He presses Byakuya and Kenpachi to extreme diff, and he has just stated countless times to be the strongest. I know it's a fairly lame answer, and trust me, I do want to say Ukiura, but it's important to be sort of fair. Yami in his release state just turns into Espada 0, which would just be the highest ranking Espada in spiritual pressure. Yami also stores up tons of SP by eating and sleeping, and again pushed Byakuya and Kenpachi to extreme death. I know it seems like this was just a big joke in the anime and manga, but Kenpachi and Byakuya could hardly stand after their fight. Mind you, they didn't even kill Yami immediately, he was still alive after they fought. The core reason why Yami is number 1 and Ukiura is number 2 is because of spiritual power. I think Yami would slap away many Lanza Devil embargoes. Yami could also eat damage on top of damage, and we know the weaker spiritual force takes the impact, so in combat, Ukiura just be taking the damage like a good boy. I just think A Wrong Car Invasion has fat ass Yami as the strongest. In Wako Mundo, it has to go to Ukiura. For me, it's pretty simple. Ukiura is number 4, which would have higher SP than mostly everyone. Bankai masked Ichigo did nothing to him while a slightly stronger Ichigo beat Grimmjow. Grimmjow himself thinks that Ukiura and him would kill each other, but Grimmjow also has pretty bad battle IQ, so it makes sense that he thinks something that just isn't true. Contextually, Ukiura follows Aizen to the T and wouldn't want to dispatch another member who is useful in terms of serving Aizen. Basically, any Grimmjow argument meets the brick wall of segunda etapa. However, that's literally overkill because the strongest version of Ichigo, while in Wako Mundo, got perception blitzed so bad by Res 1 Ukiura. Other people like Haribel wouldn't count, but if she did, I just think Ukiura would be stronger just in Res 1. Fate Katakura is pretty boring, but it's also pretty easy. It's just Aizen. Aizen is immortal at this point in the story. When he takes that big ass blow from Ichigo and the wound starts repairing itself on some Bastion shit, Ichigo thinks Aizen is healing. Aizen just says, "No nigga, don't compare me to them," and Aizen's wound seems to be readjusting itself to where it almost never happened. This continuously happens over and over again. Attacks just don't work on Aizen. He gets stronger and stronger. The writer wrote a plot point that concluded with the MC rushing to end the fight before he just powers through it all and gets too strong. And guess what? Aizen just got too strong. It was to the point where the smartest character in the series made a countermeasure against him getting too strong. Fullbring is Ichigo for obvious reasons. We're gonna break down the chain scaling and it will become pretty simple. A Bankai mask Ichigo in Fate Katakura is able to seriously damage Aizen, as I just mentioned. This Aizen is categorically above every Espada, every subordinate, every captain, almost every other person we have seen. This means Bankai mask Ichigo, when locked in, could realistically defeat every single opponent in the story so far with this superior SP. Fullbring Ichigo is just a stronger version of that, meaning Fullbring Ichigo is just a demon. In fact, Fullbring Ichigo going Bankai was able to break out of a pocket dimension that was set up just for him to fight in. Fullbring Ichigo just has so many good feats. In early 1000 Year Blood War, he fights Kyoge and pushes that dude to the ultimate brink. Kyoge is one of Yuha's most respected soldiers in charge of the whole department in the Quincy government, and he was scared to put down Blunt Vein for a second because he knew his ass was gonna get fried. Fullbring Bankai Ichigo is incredibly underrated in strength. If Fullbring Ichigo fought against Ukiura again, he would genuinely decimate him so bad. I'm willing to bet money that Fullbring Ichigo could 1v3 Kisuke, Ishin, and Yoriichi. Okay, I'm kinda lying when I say that, but I bet he will push them to extreme death. And you know why? Because Fullbring Bankai Ichigo was able to damage Yuha, albeit Yuha kinda ate the attack, but he was still able to do damage despite being fatigued from breaking out of the jail and fighting Kyoge. In short, Fullbring Ichigo is a monster and nothing to play with. Super underrated. 1000 Year Blood War is pretty simple. Yuha's ability is to see the future and materialize any future he sees. However, that is every future. He can materialize every future that he sees. This is just one of the most broken abilities in general. I think the problem with this ability is that there's too much to interpret from it. It functionally has no limits. If there was a future where there was just a car crash in the middle of my room, then he could just materialize that future and it would happen. This is in the story. Ichigo is standing still and Yuha just materialized a trap he set in another future. This ability is so broken, Yuha can just materialize a future where he didn't die and is alive. For more real scaling and not just, oh, this ability is cracked, Yamamoto's Bankai was slowly going to eat away at the Soul Society / Serete. It was to the point where Unohana said he had to hurry up, and even Toshiro's Bankai was getting affected. This same Yama got his chain snatched by Yuha with no Almighty, just a base flaccid Yuha. This Yuha went on to fight Ichibe. When Ichibe put out his Shikai, guess what happened? My guy froze. Yuha couldn't sense any spiritual pressure from Ichibe's blade, meaning it was a transcendent blade. This should be apparent that anything that is transcendent to you means that you are far below its level. Yuha got dismantled by this Ichibe, and he unlocks the Almighty just to cancel his attack in the future and one-shot him. This is what Yuha could realistically do to any ability used against him. I personally believe Ichigo has some intrinsic resistance to the Almighty, and that is why he was able to win despite the Almighty being on. After everything I just said, I think the answer should be pretty obvious. The strongest character in 1000 Year Blood War is Ichigo Kurosaki. Yes, it is. This Yuha, who was Omega Giga buffed by everything in the story, like all the Quincy's dying, absorbing the Soul King, and having the Almighty, got one shot by a fatigued falling over from running Ichigo twice. The fact that Ichigo was able to completely erase and dismantle Yuha in one shot on 2 separate occasions means that Ichigo, while heavily nerfed by his powers being sucked out and super tired, is on Yuha's level. I believe if Ichigo entered the Yuha fight with Bankai already popped, he would have won the fight. I don't want to get into headcanon territory with what I think Ichigo's Bankai is, but to me the logic is simple. If Ichigo, after getting his soul sucked and so tired he's falling over from running, is able to one-shot Yuha twice, then full power Ichigo with the 10 times multiplier and the real ability because he got a real Zanpakuto would absolutely fry Yuha, no question. Alright, this video was a more relaxed type of video, but I kind of like bleach scaling. I want to do more videos kind of related to bleach scaling, but it's going to be always weird and contentious. Like, it would be fun to rank all the 1000 Year Blood War characters in terms of strength and everything, because it might be a little fun to see how people could complain or interpret the different abilities that are more hacks based. Like, for example, right, I don't think Askin is going to lose a single 1v1. Like, I don't think, unless he's fighting Yuha or Aizen or someone like that, Askin is not losing a 1v1. But it's going to be pretty fun to discuss those type of things. So if you know, want to see some things like that, let me know. It should be fun. Besides that, thanks for watching. Do your thing.